In this video, I'm sharing some essential tips for anyone who wants to use a teleprompter to deliver information, like in a YouTube video or a presentation. I'm using one right now, but if I didn't tell you that, you probably wouldn't have known. For the first time ever, I'm sharing my secrets. Stay with me. I'm Phil Pallen, a brand strategist. Welcome to my channel where I share practical advice to build your brand. Today I'm in Madrid, Spain, and I'm actually really excited for this video. This is something I get asked often about, so I felt like it was finally time for me to make a video about it, using a teleprompter, tips, apps, and strategies to do it well. It would take me so long to make a YouTube video if I did not use a teleprompter. It's not that I'm not confident in sharing my ideas without a script. I can do it, and I've tried it in previous videos. However, for me, taking the time to actually write a script beforehand and deliver it using an iPad and a teleprompter app, this ensures I don't forget anything that I want to say. I can normally record a video in a single take, and I can do it without any major disruptions, which seriously cuts down on filming and editing time. I swear by using a prompter, and this is something I've had years of practice and training for. In fact, my career began a decade ago working in LA, and my niche was TV hosts and personalities. So I worked alongside hosts that needed to learn this skill. Nowadays, you don't need to be a TV host to benefit from this skill either. As a business owner, you're creating content like I'm doing right now, and you have to be able to do it efficiently. I think a prompter can help with that. So let's jump right in because there's a lot that I want to cover on this topic. I'm sharing 5 tips in total, and I promise this video is going to be interactive. I want it to feel like you and I are in a room together training. So let's get started. Teleprompter tip number 1, you need practice. I realize that is such a boring tip to start with, but I promise it's not going to be boring. We're going to practice together. You're watching this video on YouTube. You can put this full screen in a moment. I'm going to put the script on the screen, and I want you to read it out loud. It's going to look exactly like it would if it was in a prompter, and we'll talk through it right after, so get ready. Maybe stand to do this. This is an actual script from a past video that I have made. It's a sample script, and it's a simple script, so I think that you'll have no challenges reading it. Here we go. To get the most from this, read it out loud. It's only about 30 seconds, and I'm going to count you down now. 3, 2, 1. Okay, well done if you actually listened to me and you did what I told you to do. You can also scrub back in this video if you want to practice again, but I'd like to go through the script one more time and point out some stuff. So first thing, I write the video title in my actual script and I say it out loud. That way, the video editor knows what I'm editing. I write my script in all caps, which I find easier to read. I also add punctuation, even if it's not grammatically correct, because no one cares. It's just me reading it. Sometimes exclamation marks I use to emphasize something, or brackets if it's more of an aside or a side thought. I use square brackets when there are editing notes that I need to remember. When an animation appears, if there's something to point to, square brackets to me mean don't say it out loud, but still notice. And you'll come up with little systems and methods yourself the more you practice. So tip number 1, the only way to get good at this and to not sound like you're reading is to practice. Practice, practice, practice. Let's move on. Teleprompter tip number 2, script one idea per sentence. Let me explain. I actually studied broadcast journalism in my undergraduate degree, and the most valuable takeaway from those studies was this. When you're writing for broadcast, limit yourself to one idea per sentence. Say one idea and then put a period. A sentence like this should only have one idea. The next idea can come in the next sentence. Instead of writing a lot of commas, it can get confusing and it can get very difficult to read quickly. This is very different from essay writing. It might seem overly simplistic on paper, but I promise when you deliver the information, it's so much easier for you to communicate it without stumbling and for your audience to understand. A few other ideas when you're writing your script: Write the script yourself, ideally. It is so much easier to read a script written in your voice, something you're already familiar with, using words that you would use in normal conversation. If someone else is writing it, maybe someone who works with you or is in charge of the content, I'm not sure, but it happens. And in these instances, I recommend reading through it first, getting really comfortable with it before you get to this point. And if needed, rewrite it using words that you would normally use. Remove words that you would not normally use because you are guaranteed to trip up on them when reading out loud. And that's another thing. Read it out loud. That's going to help train your brain to recognize the script and the words before reading it from the prompter. And that is key to sounding natural. So tip number 2 is one idea per sentence. That keeps it conversational. Ideally, you've written the script so it sounds like you. If you haven't, read through, rewrite, practice, get familiar with it before you deliver it. Next tip. Teleprompter tip number 3, look past the prompter. Look into the lens of the camera. This might be the most important tip I give you, and I'll explain it. This is all part of not giving the script or the teleprompter more importance than it deserves. It is a fancy piece of gear, but it's not that important. It exists to remind you what to say, and what you say and how you say it, that's the star of the show, you. Look past the prompter. The prompter really doesn't matter. Don't even read from it. Look right into the camera lens. You can usually see the camera lens through it, and your prompter is reflected right in front of it if you're using an apparatus for this, or you might have it slightly out of frame. Look into the camera as much as possible. Let the words be visible to remind you what to say, but looking into the camera makes it more natural. This will also help you prevent darting your eyes back and forth. Now, I'm going to read that last sentence or two again and show you how it's different when it's read. Let the words be visible to remind you what to say, but looking into the camera makes it more natural. This will help you prevent darting your eyes back and forth. Now, hopefully there you saw the difference. I was actually reading it. So tip number 3, look past the prompter. It's not more important than you. It is not even important at all. It is just an aid. Teleprompter tip number 4, find your settings. This is something that practice is going to teach you. Like giving a speech from a stage, everyone's preferences are slightly different. Some speakers prefer a podium. Others prefer without. Some speakers prefer cue cards, while others might memorize their speech, or they might ad-lib and just say it how it comes to them in the moment. With a teleprompter, there are a few things that you can adjust, and I'll show you what now. You can have bigger text, font size even. You can choose what font you'd like to read from. I typically leave mine as the default, which is Arial or Helvetica on most apps. You can select background color. I leave that as black. You can also define margins, which determine the width of the text column. Mine is normally set at around 20%. Be careful not to have too wide of a margin because you'll look like you're reading. Also not too narrow because it will mean your eyes need to scan vertically too much, and that could also look like you're reading as well. You can set a cue indicator, which is a small triangle that helps you keep your eyes centered, and there are other settings too, which will depend on your configuration. The most important setting is speed. This is really something you should experiment with. I set mine on this particular app around 35, which is quite quick, but I read quickly. And I also have no problem pausing the prompter from time to time to catch up, which I do using a remote or a keyboard. I'd rather have it slightly faster than too slow. You also may have spotted a setting there called mirroring. This is something I do use because I use an actual teleprompter device that houses my iPad, and then it flips the image from the screen onto the pane of glass that the camera sits behind. So it has to be mirrored in order for me to read it. This is how it looks from my perspective. So there's lots to play with there. If you're just getting started, you could use an iPhone or an iPad app and have the screen nearby the camera. If you're really wanting a proper setup, I recommend investing in a teleprompter device designed for an iPad screen. It's the best way to read directly into the camera without glancing off screen for a true non-reading effect. And then most apps will enable you to also have a remote control, which could be a basic remote control for your computer. Could be a mouse, it could be a headphone volume control from a pair of headphones. I've used that before. Or it could be a keyboard, which is what I use. I just let it sit on my lap And I like this option because pressing the keys down is very, very quiet and it doesn't get picked up from the microphone. So you're gonna find your settings and your setup. That's tip number 4. Tip number 5, my final tip today. Become a pro by building confidence. The only way you'll build confidence is by practicing. Not only filming yourself, but also watching it back and critiquing yourself, which I know can be awful and uncomfortable, but it's really, really important. Remember, the script does not matter. In most cases, only you know the script, so don't be afraid to go off script in the moment. In fact, I encourage it because it keeps it more conversational. The more you practice, the more you'll find confidence going off script and try different settings and setups until you land on something perfect. I also recommend trying different teleprompter apps as they all kind of vary with settings and price. Some are free, some are premium. I'll put my best teleprompter app recommendation in the description below, just in case it ever changes. So there you go. 5 tips for using a teleprompter. I've linked to the tools and the devices in the description below, right down there for you to check out everything I use to pull off this setup so that you can use it yourself. Use it like a little checklist. If you've got any lingering questions, comment below. Let's keep the conversation going on down there. I respond to those personally. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. That helps other people discover these videos, which we work hard to create for you. And subscribe for more of my videos here on YouTube on branding, positioning, building, and promoting your brand. Next, I'm linking you through to a few videos that I think you'll be interested in. I'm Phil Pallen. Thanks for watching, and those videos are coming up next.